So I'm happy to take any questions that you have, please.
Natalie, could you go back to the slide with the two formats and explain a little better how are students to choose this, or?
I think this is chosen by their programs.
Okay.
So every program, so say nursing can choose whether they want their students to enroll in the half credit course or the 1 credit course. I don't think this is the student's choice. I think this is basically every department is different. And if they do enroll in a half credit course, the department has to supplement some of the training and make it more relevant to their program.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Is this still required of PhD students, all PhD students, or?
I believe it is, Natalie?
Yeah, it is required, but if a department has another course that they can, that's appropriate and covers the same content, that's.
I'm sorry, we
internally-
can't hear you in the back.
Sorry, no, I'm saying it is required, but if a department has a supplemental program for RCR within their curriculum, they can use that and opt out of this. And I think the permission waivers came to the grad college last year, and we would do the same. So if there was a department saying, like math, for example, doesn't do this, so there's other programs, then Natalie can review the curriculum, just get waived out of it. You don't have to involve the students in this.
Thank you.
There was another question at the back. Somebody? Yeah.
You just mentioned the supplementary training required to take the half credit course, but I thought the other option was 5 classroom lectures without the supplementary training.
So I guess it depends because we had master students and PhD students for this. And as far as I know, some of the students in biomedical sciences were required to take, like it's 10 contact time is what is required by NIH. So it depends on the involvement of students in this program. And if it's 10 hours, even the 8 50-minute lectures that we are conducting, the department is supplementing additional 2 contact hours. Right, so it really varies department to department. Any other questions? Tess, you wanna? No, okay. All right, thank you.
So thank you, Natalie, for that presentation. So again, I'll be reaching out to you the next couple of weeks to secure this list of research assistants. So again, it's just for new research assistants, correct? So, and thank you so much for your support with the TA list as well. So that was, even though, we did encounter some resistance from our, first year students not wanting to take the course, but they will require to take this course next year. Thank you.
All right, so hello everyone. My name is Sandra Strang. I'm with the Graduate College. I'm the Communications and Events Manager. So on behalf of the Office of Research, I just want to provide a few updates for you all. These are things you may already know, but in case you do not, we want to make sure that you're aware of the new mandatory lab safety requirement via the BioRaft system. Some of your departments may already have been using this and were part of the pilot program last year. So this year, they are fully implementing this requirement. The training is going to be directly linked to the course that a student is registered for. So if the course requires a lab safety training, these are courses with labs, clinical or medical components. The student will be required to complete a training, and they're actually required to complete it before classes or labs begin in order to be compliant. So the courses were assigned the proper level of training. You can find more detail on each of the levels on the website linked below. But the courses were determined by just purely the course description that's in the course catalog. So that's what was used to determine what level of training that was going to be required for students. So since this is the first year of the requirement, they're working with faculty. The Director of Environmental Health and Safety is working with faculty as well as teaching assistants to make sure that the proper level of training matches the course. For example, if a course requires too much training or not enough training, that's something that the faculty and teaching assistants will need to communicate to John Chase. So students will log into the BioRAF system with their existing Drexel credentials, so there shouldn't be any issue there. And then again, as I mentioned, they're not permitted to attend the lab until the training is complete. So this is just an FYI for you as advisors that faculty and teaching assistants are going to be managing this. And the teaching assistants were also made aware of this ahead of time during the TA orientation, as well as through communications to existing TAs. So they should be working with their faculty on this. So if you get any questions or have any concerns about the training you hear from students or faculty, John Chase from Environmental Health and Safety is the contact. So just so you know that this is going on. And secondly, we wanted to share the Philadelphia Symposium on Research Credibility and Excellence, which is happening on Monday. So Drexel University is an official sponsor, along with some other universities in the area. So this is taking place Monday at the Union League of Philadelphia on Broad Street. So we wanted to share this with you. Please encourage your students or other members of your colleges to attend if possible. This is definitely something that's important, especially for graduate students, making sure, leading into the responsible conduct of research, that we're thinking about these things. And since Drexel is a partner, we just want to help spread the word about this event for those of you who may be interested. And the website is there with more information and registration. All right, so at this time we're going to move on to our folks who are here from Registrar and also Academic Information and Systems. So if you want to come on up, we'll start that portion.
Good afternoon, everybody. Oops, sorry, I think I lost the mic here. Good afternoon. I think I lost it. Well, can everyone hear me? Well, good afternoon. I'm Joseph Salmon. I'm the University Registrar. I'm going to go over a couple of the updates for academic policies. So how many of you are aware that academic policies have changed effective the fall? Well, that's a good sign. How many of you are not aware that they've changed or are a little confused about the changes? Okay, it's okay. I don't want to put you on the spot. So there's been a long journey to get to where we are today for academic policy changes, but the ones that I'm going to discuss are specifically the ones that are most prevalent to graduate students, and I'll say graduate quarter students. So the academic standing policy has changed. It has gone through several revisions and an evolution over the past academic year. To talk a little bit about the concept of term probation and what does that mean. We had changed it previously because what had happened is under graduate quarter probation was solely based on cumulative GPA of a 3.0. And that presented numerous challenges where students that can have a succession of bad terms suddenly find themselves at the allowable number of credits to graduate and a GPA that is dangerously below a 3.0. So there's nothing worse than telling a student that has completed 45 credits, which is the minimum to complete a master's at the graduate level in state regulations, that they cannot graduate because they have a 2.99 and 45 credits. And we've had to do that in the past. Unfortunately, we found opportunities that we were able to work with the student. So that's a little bit of the background of why the academic standing policy needed to change. So currently what we're doing is we are monitoring term probation with if a student is in a situation where if their overall cum is a 3.0 or better, and they have a couple of bad terms, which means their term GPA is below a 3.0, these students who had previously found themselves in the probationary category of term probation will now be in a good standing check category where they would have to see their advisor, work on a prescriptive remedy in getting their GPA for the next couple of terms while monitoring their cum GPA. So this policy, Natalie, I believe it's on the Provost website. I just checked and okay, good. Do you know what it's exactly under, because I was having a hard time finding it?
Well, it should be under academic standing.
Okay.
It's the A.
It's under graduate student academics.
Okay, good,
Now it's
good.
under G.
Okay, good,
And
okay.
may be hidden if it's, there would be some just typo updates being updated, so.
Okay, good, okay. So, well, that's progress. So when we looked at the academic standing policy, we realized that there needed to be a holistic approach in helping students, in the graduate students in this case. And part of it is we also looked at the repeat policy. So how many of you are familiar with the repeat course policy? Okay, good. The old policy stated, and this is for graduate quarter students, that a student had the option of repeating a course twice. Well, two options of repeating a course or another course, and it still didn't impact the GPA. So basically, if I got, say, a C, I would petition the graduate college, and maybe probably at that time it was probably the Office of Graduate Studies, to say, hey, I want to repeat this course. However, they would approve it, or the department would work with the graduate college. However, it didn't impact the GPA. So the two grades ended up being averaged. So if I'm in a situation where I got an F or a D, and then I get an A, I'm really getting possibly a C averaged into my GPA, which really doesn't help the student. So when we thought about it, we were thinking about the success that we've had on the undergraduate side, where we implemented, actually since last fall, the ability for undergraduate students to repeat courses, one option per course for a total of 4 times, 4 occurrences, that they would petition to have their GPA substituted, and we would take the highest of the occurrences. So that has really helped our freshmen and the undergraduate students who have successfully been, using that as a remedy, part of the holistic academic advising process, to get off of probation. So we decided that we would try it on the graduate side. So what does that mean? That means that if a student has gotten a B- or lower in a course, would like to petition to repeat the course and have their grade substituted, they would have to have taken the first occurrence of that course in the fall. So that means this really is going to start in the winter. So say in 2018, 15, I got a C, which probably I would never get in my existence here at the university, maybe at the undergraduate, at the graduate side. And I petitioned my school, and I would say, I'd like to do this. They would say, okay, Joseph has taken this course, he meets the grade criterion, they would petition to the graduate college, it would be stored on file, and then when grade submission happens, we would work with the graduate college, meaning we, the registrar's office, and we would take the highest occurrence. So that means the original occurrence of the C will remain on the transcript. The new occurrence, say that I got an A, would still appear on the transcript. The C would be excluded out of credits and GPA, and it would be included in the winter term or spring term, whatever I got the A in. So we're not erasing the grade. The grade will always remain on the transcript. However, the GPA associated to that C will no longer be part of my term and cum GPA. So you could see how this will help a student. Say in that scenario that a student had gotten an F and now they get an A. It will really help them. But because a graduate student's tenure for the minimum 45 is very short, it's a duration of 2 years, we really are not offering 5 or 6. They really need to be applied appropriately, because we really want the students that are most in need of them to get them. And that's for, related to the term probation. I could be a first-term student, I could do poorly, so there's a variety. So part of that, this philosophy and this change to the repeat arose from many discussions about, what would really help a student. And part of that is the repeat, really didn't help a student if it was getting averaged into their GPA. So, yes.
How does that interact with the academic standing policy? Because let's say a student takes a class, does poorly in the fall, and in some graduate programs, we're small and don't repeat things every term. So let's say they can't take it again for several terms, meanwhile their GPA is, down in the dumps. So how does that work?
But the new standing policy, if they're a first term grad student, maybe I should get up so you can hear me.
I don't think the
There's
first.
about 22 people online.
I don't
so
think
we
the
would
first
need
term
to
we decided we weren't going to do the So going back to your question,
Yeah.
I
You
would
wanna
say.
repeat it for the online people, cause they probably didn't hear it.
Let me see if I understand it. You basically said that, say if I take a course effective like 2018-15, and then that course is not offered again until maybe 2019-15, and I've gotten a poor grade, what happens? How am I progression-wise happening? Well, you have to make the determination of where the student is in that point in time. If they're able to progress, and if the department in college wants the student to progress, then the student will progress based on whatever remedy you prescribe in a 2-term sequence, and then knowing that when the course is offered again, the student also gets the benefit. So when I take that course in 2019-15 again, and say the student does well, because I'm an optimist and I want the student to do well. So say they get an A, and I had an F. The F will be removed. However, the standing for that term will remain the same, because we're not going to go retroactively back and change the standing, because to the outside world, we're never gonna represent an F and have good standing. So, but their term going forward gets better. So say I could have been in a category where I'm continued on probation, I could have over a 3.0 in both term and cum, and then I would be off of probation. So you could see that it really helps in point in time, but we have to keep the consistency and the academic history intact. So it would help the student, but you have to make the understanding that that's the decision you're making during the reinstatement process, knowing that, hey, we're going to utilize the course repeat, but we're not going to be able to do that until 2019-15. So let's think about what the student's going to take in fall and spring, knowing that that option is coming down the pike.
Okay, thank you.
No, you're welcome. So I did understand your question. Sorry, thank you. Yes. Oh, sorry, in the back, sorry.
So my question is, because typically they go on, if they're not in good standing and they repeat it and then get back in good standing, let's say they fail another course and they're back, not in good standing again, then they're dismissed, right? Because they, if they go below 2 times, are they gonna have another option?
They would only be dismissed if they're, it depends, remember, if they've never been in an academic standing, they go on probation. Only if their GPA is, what is it, a 1.0, what do we?
Yeah, 1.0 is immediate.
That's immediate dismissal. So a student never goes directly to academic dismissal. Sorry, student doesn't go directly to academic dismissal, they go on a probationary status, only if their term is like a 1.0. So in your example, has that student been previously on academic?
Yes.
Okay.
That's what I mean.
So, yeah, I mean, you have to, the grades are the grades. If they go to dismissal, they have the option of appealing. So you're not gonna permanently dismiss a student. So remember, permanent dismissal is after a first dismissal. So if they're in a permanent dismissal category, that means they've already been on probation, they've already been dismissed, so they've already been on probation and in a 2-term remedy, and then they're dismissed, reinstated in another 2-term. I mean, their tenure here is not that long. So you kind of have to think about, the average life of a graduate student, academic tenure is about 2 years, if it's full-time. So you have to be careful that if they've already been dismissed, they're gonna go to permanent dismissal.
So Amanda, I think I know what you're talking about in addition to what Joseph was saying, is that the system is set up that if they go through, placed end of fall, probation for the subsequent 2 terms, in the last term, maybe they come back up and then they do the sort of cycle again, that's when they go to dismissal,
Yeah.
right? So it's I sort of look at it, this is a
Yeah.
bad example, but it's sort of
No,
like a
it's not.
hamster wheel.
Right.
It's like,
Yeah.
and how many terms can a student go through this pattern? Plus, your program in particular has also very strict standards of when, you would dismiss a student, right, based on.
This new policy that can substitute agreement, where they have that option, if it's their second time going on probation.
Well,
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
it does, but it goes back to Jean's question. So if that happens, then the standing in that term with the repeat changes. So then they are no longer on that cycle. But it doesn't mean they reset to good standing as a result of not being on probation. They would be in the good standing as a result of whatever that previous status was. The system always has to keep track of the number of times they've been placed, the number of times they've dismissed. So just because I repeat a course, it doesn't reset me to perfect good standing. It has to keep track of that path. But yes, so that's an excellent example because that's a good way to think about how the repeat would happen. What else was we were thinking? Okay, I also wanted to talk a little bit about some of the undergraduate policies that have changed that really will impact graduate students. Those are the leave of absence and the withdrawal. So I know that many of you, how many of you have watched my long drawn out video that I apologize that you had to sit through for an hour and a half? Actually, maybe it was 45 minutes. Okay, good. So anyway, you'll probably have to watch it again because there's nuances in the leave of absence and the withdrawal that will impact graduate students, meaning that leave of absence can be enacted point in time, and if a student takes a leave, it impacts the coursework appropriately. When before, if a student took a leave, it was really effective the next term, and the courses just sat out there as W's. So it really is putting the leave and how courses are treated together. Also, there was some kind of misunderstanding that a student couldn't withdraw physically from the institution after week 7. So that means that we can't prevent a student from withdrawing from the institution. So I've fixed that so that a student can withdraw all the way up until the last day of classes. If they withdraw into finals, they get the grades that they've earned. So those are some of the nuances that I definitely think that you should pay close attention to. Now, we are in the process of getting them updated on the Provost website. There was a bit of a couple of speed bumps on the highway, so we're working on getting them ironed out, and hopefully they should be present by week 7. I know they're going through the last stages, but that doesn't mean we're not operating under the assumption that the process is going to be the same. So if you have any students that are taking a withdrawal or a leave of absence, please make sure that you pay close attention to those sections in the video, because we are moving forward with it. I also want to add actually give you an FYI about the incomplete policy. So no incompletes will be accepted without an incomplete contract. So effective fall, the incomplete will no longer be a drop-down during grade submission. So what does that mean? That means I, as a faculty member, will not have the ability to assign an incomplete easily without enacting a contract. So if I do not have a contract on file in the registrar's office, the registrar's office will not be assigning an incomplete. And the reason behind this is that we need this policy in force. Going forward, there will be further changes to the incomplete, but that is going to happen effective December when grade submission happens. So I would suggest that you, as the prophets for your colleges and departments, start spreading the word. I've also worked with the Office of Faculty Affairs. We're going to be sending out a memo to faculty for grade submission saying that they will no longer be able to submit an incomplete during grade submission. So why do you think that is important? Okay, well, I'll tell you. That is important because we need to have an accurate reason why an incomplete was first assigned, the conditions under which it was assigned, and more importantly, when the expectation that the incomplete will be completed. So there's been a misconception or an urban legend that that an incomplete is a year to complete. That is absolutely incorrect. So really, when two policies kind of relate, I think someone morphed them together. You can change a grade. There is a statute of limitations for a year. However, that doesn't mean that an incomplete, which can be in a category of a change of grade, automatically says it's a year. When doing that, you have to look at the incomplete and say the incomplete should be completed as dictated by the instructor. And it shouldn't exceed 2 quarters worth of work. And why is that? Well, I'll tell you, because an incomplete should have been negotiated with a minimum of 70% of coursework completed. So the problem is when an incomplete is assigned during the drop-down, that means a student could have attended week 2 and then disappeared. So a faculty member who wants to really work with a student says, you know what, I remember Joseph being in my class and he submitted a really good assignment. I'm going to just give him an incomplete. So that happens, and what happens is the student never knows, and then the student says, well, you know, I had a really bad term and I'm trying to file a late appeal for a withdrawal, and then we see that an incomplete is out there, it causes another problem. So then when you contact the student, they said, I never negotiated that, and then it sets a bad So you can see a lot of these are all intertwined. So the incomplete has been a really point of contention for many, many years, and we're working on creating a structure that eventually will be automated, but until we get there, we have to break a couple of the bad behaviors. Yes,
So, but.
not Sarita, sorry, there was someone in the back that had their hand up.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
I'm just wondering who is responsible for submitting the incomplete paperwork? Is it the faculty or is it the advisor, student?
The faculty should work with the department. So I know in the wonderful departments that I teach in, they will say to me, I will outreach to them and I will say I need an incomplete. I'll submit the contract to them, they'll review it, and then it's approved. I send it to the student, and then the student understands what the expectations are, and then it goes to the registrar's office. So what was happening is there was a disjoint between the assignment of the incomplete and us chasing down the contract. So if we are ever in a situation of litigation, that never really happens at the institution, and we need to understand there's not an incomplete on file. So,
The
Sarita.
grad college will still
Yeah,
collect.
yeah, sorry. The grad college will work with the registrar's office on the graduate side. The undergraduate, they will submit them directly from the department to, but the graduate college will submit them to us, and they will all be in Knowledge, so electronically you can always pull them up.
So NGRs are still going to be on the drop down?
And NGR is not on the drop-down. No, it's not.
So it's all just grades, that's
It's
it?
all just grades. An NGR is the absence of a grade. So when an instructor leaves something blank, we obviously can't leave a blank because the student will never see their course on their transcript. So it's really a placeholder, which is very temporary. So the good news is that if someone tries to leave the course blank, there's a statute of limitations for that NGR to turn into an F. So we never want a grade to exist on a transcript for over a year because that causes problems with academic standing. It also wreaks havoc in retrospect of trying to piece together academic history. And it doesn't make sense and it does not help the student. Yes, Jean?
Will either the registrar's office or the graduate college notify adjuncts and current students about the new grade policy?
Yes.
Because one of the problems we continually have is it's the end of the term, the instructor says, I never got assignment 7 from such and such a student, and I've been sending emails and he's not responding, and I don't know what to do. And so I've been just telling those people, just give them the grade they've earned. Whatever the grade is right now, give them the grade they've earned. And then if they turn the assignment in 3 days from now, you can do grade change.
Right.
But I do think it would be helpful if students understood that the option for an incomplete will only be granted if they reach out to their instructor.
Absolutely.
That it's on them.
Absolutely.
Because we spend unbelievable energy trying to chase them down, and it is not always effective.
So Jean, I'll let you know that I worked with the Office of Faculty.
I'm sorry, we have
Sorry.
25
Oh,
people
sorry.
online. We have to repeat
Okay.
the question if you can. Just-
Sorry.
Yeah, because they're going crazy on the chat because they can't hear.
The question.
Questions.
The question was that will faculty, adjunct faculty, and students be educated? So I've worked with the Office of Faculty Affairs to update the adjunct handbook to actually, since I was in the process of approving this, the adjunct handbook has really all of the elements of under which an incomplete can be assigned, and that it is really the instructor's right and not the student's right. So sometimes at Drexel, students have the expectation that it is their right to get an incomplete, which is not the case. So yes, absolutely. So going back to Jean's point, yes, if a student has missed coursework and has not contacted the instructor, even after numerous outreaches from the instructor, then it really is the grade at point in time. If something happens, then the student can work with the instructor, going back to Jean's point. If it's, say I earned a C at that time, and there's other in circumstances, it can always be a change of grade. Because really, students sometimes miss a final. If you miss a final, it's not the instructor's obligation to re-give a final. So it's really not. And there could be extenuating circumstances. If there are, then it goes back to the point again. You give grade at point in time, you work on completing the coursework, and then you change it. There's such a small window with that. It's like a one assignment. So the incomplete is much larger. It's like it's a max of 30% of the course. So we're talking multiple assignments, if it's an online class, multiple discussion board posts, a final mode of instruction. It could be a variety of things. It could also be a course where there's a final paper that the student has been working on during the course of the term. So that means the student has missed more than 30%. Because they should have been building this paper along as they went. So there's so many nuances to the incomplete, and that's why it became so amorphous and so confusing. So we are sending out information to the faculty during the grade submission notification, and we will continue to work with students and academic advisors. So I've been working with the undergraduate side heavily. This is the first opportunity that I've been able to talk to the graduate advisors. Like I said, the incomplete has always been a minimum of 70%. Unfortunately, because instructors didn't have guidance and it was available during the drop-down and grade submission, it became the Wild West. So now the Wild West, there's going to be a new sheriff in town, and that's me. Yes.
Will the in-progress still be available at the drop-down?
If the course is set up to be in progress, yes, absolutely. So that's an excellent question, because courses are normally set up to be in progress. That means that's a valid grade mode for the course. If it is a standard grade, an in progress is not valid. Okay, so this is actually done to better the student experience and to also provide faculty with a framework, because sometimes they feel they don't have any guidance or options, and it's during grade submission and I'm very confused about what to do, because they want to err on the side of not harming the student. But honestly, if your syllabus has expectations, those are the expectations for the course. And an incomplete is only negotiated because of extenuating circumstances. So you can't always assume that, the syllabus is, a living document. It's there for a reason. That's why you encourage students to review it at the start of every term. Okay, that was the only one that I really wanted to say that's really going to keep evolving. So hopefully we'll get there, but I just wanted to let you know, the sooner you can spread the word, the better. Faculty will be getting an email, but not everyone reads it. Adjunct faculty are very aware of it. It's in the new handbook. So remember that it is not going to be available during grade submission. Yes?
And the provost policy is gonna be updated soon with the new incomplete policy, because right now it's sort of the old one.
Right, but no, it will not, because we're working on confirming the incomplete, but this is an enforcement of the incomplete. So the problem is the incomplete was never enforced. The policy has always been an incomplete needs to have an accompanying incomplete contract.
Right. But the fact that it will not be an option now for a faculty member to select, will that be added to the policy?
It's going to be added if I can get it added, but the whole point is it never really should have been part of it. So really, we're really enforcing the policy. So you have to really think about policy as a statement and then procedure and practice as something else. So unfortunately, most of Drexel's policies are written as procedures, which are not really the true way to write a policy. So elements of the procedure are governed by the offices that manage it. So I will be responsible for educating everyone in various mediums. So if I can get it updated, I will specifically, but there will be 5 times during the course of this quarter that faculty will be sent an email about grade submission, and in there it will clearly say that the incomplete is not part of grade submission anymore. So I'm really trying to infiltrate all areas from a grassroots standpoint when we get policies implemented. So the sooner you can spread the word, the better. And if there's anyone that has an issue or a concern, or I don't know how else to phrase it, I have a policy hotline. They can just call me, and we can definitely review it, because this is actually in the best interest of students, and it's something that needed to be changed a long time ago.
Where is the contract gonna live?
The contract will live on the Provost site. That will be updated, and it will specifically say where to email the information. There is a separate contract for undergrad and graduate currently, and we're going to be working on merging them together.
Can staff members receive the email that you're sending to the faculty?
Yes, they should, yes. So actually, I'm not sure, because I think only the faculty will, but we'll figure out a way to educate a little bit better. It's very difficult, because when you send out emails, people don't read emails, and everyone operates in, panic mode. So part of that is, this is not going to be a big issue, because we're going to be happily going along the fall term, and then in week 10 or 11, then everyone's going to say, oh, I remember Joseph saying something about that. Present company excluded. But I will just say that, you know, however many times we can educate is really important. So the good news is I've really updated, I've worked with the Office of Faculty Affairs for the adjuncts, the new adjuncts, and then we'll continue to do that. So adjuncts are really placed in an unfair situation because they operate in two different worlds sometimes, on a quarter system and on a semester system. So they may be operating on policies for other universities where they teach, so it is somewhat confusing to them. Okay, yes.
Yes, so just to summarize about incompletes, no incomplete submission during the grade submission window. No incompletes if less than 70% of the work for the course has been done. And no incomplete without a contract.
No, okay, you said three things. No incomplete during grade submission means that it will not be available for submission. In my perfect world, it would only be available from 7 to 10. So that's what's under negotiation. So that means for fall, I probably will accommodate things that happen after week 10, but it will not be available during grade submission. So if it's not available during grade submission, that means there's no other way an incomplete could get entered other than by the registrar's office, and we are not doing it unless there's an accompanying contract. So what does that mean? Does that mean if a contract comes in during grade submission, I will accept it, because that's the other point that we're trying to, futuristically, it's only gonna be available through week 7 through 10. So as we educate in this transitional year, I will be working with the departments, and as soon as we receive an incomplete, that doesn't mean we're gonna be receiving incompletes when we're into winter quarter, because that's not gonna happen. So usually they could come in during grade submission or after grades have rolled, and if the instructor hasn't submitted a grade, and then they would probably receive an NGR and we could just put in the incomplete. So even if the instructor has submitted a grade, we'll work with them. But you know, it's advantageous if incompletes are negotiated well before grade submission. So that's what I'm going to put into the faculty memo, and I'm encouraging them to do that well in advance and not wait till grade submission. Yes?
What about any incompletes that are out there right now without a contract?
That's a great question, and my wonderful colleagues in AIS had run a report for me, and there are about 300 plus students that have 3 or more incompletes at the undergraduate, and equally as much at the graduate, so with 2 or more. So really they are eventually going to expire, but the gateway now has closed, like the gate, so the portal, think of it as a portal. The portal to the unknown is closed. So now there'll be some, you know, the only way an incomplete will be assigned is with a contract. So they will eventually expire. So your question is a great one, because that means those that were not negotiated were defaulted to 1 year. Those that were negotiated had a specific end date. So some of them that didn't come in with a contract, we didn't have the information, and the system needs to put a date, and that defaults to a year, but that's going to change.
Okay.
So the good news is no incompletes are ever going to be assigned during the drop-down. So I know this is like dangerous territory, and I know this is going to be hard for a couple people to take, but remember, it helps the faculty, because now the faculty could say, hey, I need to get a contract. I can't just give you an incomplete like I used to. And then it starts the talk about, you only attended 20% of my class. So it's a difficult discussion, but it's a discussion that needs to happen. Because if a student has attended 20% of the class and then is enrolled in 9 credits or more, they're also kind of enrolled in another class, because they need to complete their future coursework and their past coursework. And it doesn't set them up for success. Okay, I think we've talked about the incomplete a lot, enough. It's my favorite topic, so you can tell I love talking about it. Are there any other questions about the policies? Yes.
There was one online about going back to the course repeat. Where will the petition for GPA adjustment be for graduate?
It should reside on the Graduate College's website.
Okay.
And I know we updated it, so.
Yep.
So just to be clear, that petition needs to be received before, we have it at the undergraduate level for 2 weeks. Yeah, so we've given the student the option, so it's not something that they could just think about, you know, as they're taking the course, they have to petition it. So they can get approved for the course, but the petition for the grade substitution has to be in together. So really, when you think about it, I don't want them petitioning for the course without the grade substitution, they're all in one. Before, it used to be just petitioning to take the course. Now it's the petition in the course, and you get the added benefit of the GPA adjustment. Yes?
Since the provost website with the new policies aren't gonna be updated for a few weeks, what do you recommend, like, how do we educate both new and current students on the changes? Because usually we roll out with an updated handbook every fall, and we refer, like, links to each policy and the, you know, all that, but it's not ready, so do you have any recommendations?
The grad ones are for the academic standing and the repeat. Yeah, so they are available already. The withdrawal and leave of absence are coming soon. So if there's any issues or concerns, the good thing is, these policies aren't meant to harm students. They're actually enhancing the old policy, which gives them more freedom. So if anything, you'll start encountering issues maybe in week 7, and hopefully by then, they'll be updated. I have to apologize, I can't control all elements. No, and I just want to be perfectly transparent. So I can't control all elements of the process, and this has been quite a, yeah, it's been an interesting and long summer. So, but we're getting there. And, you know, there's a reason why things don't change around here, and I've learned that. So we're going to move forward. And actually, I have to say that, you know, Shivanti in the provost office, Elizabeth in the graduate college, Natalie, all of the graduate college, and everyone has been really wonderful, both on the undergraduate side and the graduate side realizes its importance. In the perfect world, I would have had them available on September 25th or whenever we started. But I didn't want winter to be the new fall, so fall is the new fall. Okay, so those are great questions. If there's any concerns or issues about the leave of absence or withdrawal, please just contact me and we'll work together. I don't want to put a student in any situation that's unfair or harmful. Okay, thank you. Sorry, I had policies. I could say that.
Okay, thanks, Joseph. So we're gonna introduce Chanel from AIS, and I don't know if Mary, you wanted to come up as well, but we wanted to cover a little update about grad forms in ABT, and then, well, just a little, just an update, and then also Banner 9. So Chanel, can I bring you up? Did you have a, yeah, okay, that's all set.
Good afternoon. All right, I'm gonna have to log in for a second here. But first thing was about the graduate forms in ABT. So at this point, most of the forms that are available on the graduate college site are in ABT. I know that a lot of these things are being submitted directly to Taz, and he's kind of pushing it through the process. And for the rest of the forms, we're working with the registrar's office to make sure that by the end of the term that we're able to shut down those forms from the graduate college, and that they'll be available for everyone in ABT. So for the forms that are there, is everybody seeing the forms that they need so far? Are there things that aren't working? Yes?
So it just lets you like save it to your desktop?
Right.
It doesn't submit?
That's correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
So then where would you be submitting it?
So currently,
It's just CCS.
yeah, CCS is the only one at this point that automatically submits. Every other form, you're really processing it in the way that you always have. It's just a matter of ABT helps to fill the form in for you. It records it in ABT, but the processing has not changed.
Okay, so we're still submitting it.
Yes.
That's what I was.
Okay, great. If that's the easiest question.
I just wanna, we have people online, if you could just reiterate the question and so they can restate the question when we,
Oh, I'm sorry. So the,
Advisors online.
okay. Hi, everybody. So the question was, the forms that are created in ABT, do they process automatically? And currently that is not the case, other than the CCS form. The forms are processed as they normally are. ABT is just helping with the completion of the form and storing the form and recording it. But otherwise, the forms are being processed as normal, generally through TAS. Did I get it? All right, great. Yes,
Closed section override.
yes.
form. I've found myself using that fairly often, or have found myself needing to use that often, but unable to actually populate the form because it seems as if there's any restriction on the course, whether that be waitlist capabilities or it's reserved for specific student populations, then the form just won't populate and won't allow you to. So for a specific example, our students will take CS courses, and I will work with the CCI scheduler to accommodate some students taking those courses. The CCI scheduler will say to me, please fill out a CSO form, regardless of whatever restrictions are on the course, and I'll make it happen. But I can never get the CSO form to actually populate.
So that's an internal college issue
Gotcha.
that we're actually working on.
Oh.
So it's my understanding that you cannot do a CSO that way if there's a wait list on a course. So we're having a larger conversation in CCI about how we might change
Gotcha.
that.
Okay.
But I don't know if you have that in engineering, but particularly, I'm just saying in CCI, I know that. That's why we're having the same issue.
Well, but the reason behind that is because we have to ensure that some communication has happened. So thank you for saying you're resolving that in the department. If there's an issue and you know that it's waitlisting and it's not gonna allow you, that should be resolved like, departmentally, because there needs to be some protocol in place to prevent that from happening. The reason why we don't want a closed section override, obviously you can tell that if I'm on a wait list, there's nothing worse than me sitting on a wait list, like waiting for years,
Yeah.
and then somebody just pops right in and gets the seat ahead of me.
I totally understand that, but most of this was during the week leading up to the term when
Yeah.
typically waitlist capabilities are removed from courses. So even when I just needed ABT to help me populate the form, and then I would instead had to dig up like the 10-year-old CSO form that I have on my desktop, and then that has drop downs within the PDFs that I have to go behind. It's just
So
messy.
was the waitlist removed when you tried that?
Yes,
Okay,
but that wasn't reflected within ABT.
okay, then that's the issue. Because if the waitlist is on there, so we could take a look at it. I definitely wanna make sure if the waitlist has been removed, you have the option of doing it.
It's definitely not, so
Okay.
we'll look at that
Okay.
closer, yeah.
So,
We've been
yeah.
talking a lot about that in CCI.
So
Yeah.
let me know if you need, Chris Satsby or myself, or, we can definitely help out if there's an issue.
Then we also had an issue with the course withdrawal form not populating, but you were very helpful in rectifying that last week, so thank you.
Oh, great.
Course ad as well. I tried to add someone to a course. There was a course ad form
Yes.
and it didn't populate. I got here.
Was this happening, last week, early last week?
Before that.
Before then, okay. There were some, okay, did you report that to us by any chance?
I would have had him got the student in another
Okay.
way, because I thought it was a timing issue maybe.
Yeah, there's a,
And so I was
it
like,
is
well,
tied
let's-
to the deadlines that it won't be available.
Well, you wouldn't get an error though.
Okay.
You wouldn't get an error. So the errors that were happening previously were related to the implementation of preferred name, and we got all that cleared up. So it really depends. If you generally wouldn't get an error, and there were some other forms that were having errors as well, and we got those things resolved. So please, if you do experience an error in any of the forms, please send that to ais_student@drexel.edu. If there are occasions, as you said, that the forms won't allow you to do certain things because there are restrictions and there are rules that are set up behind the forms, but you shouldn't get an error. If you get an error, please report it. Yes?
Has there been any talk with adding the graduate minor to the CCS form?
So we will be adding the minor as a separate document. We did have a conversation about adding it to the CCS form, and currently, I was told that the CCS form is too complicated to add to, so that it will have to exist separately. But we are, I mean, as with most of the documents that need to be processed and approved by multiple offices, we are still looking to digitize all those things. Other questions? Awesome. All right, so now I've got to get this computer to allow me in. I don't know why it's doing that.
Just escape out.
I don't know why this is going to require me to. Yeah, no, I'm not doing that.
Is there a way we can exit the presentation and show a website? Is that possible? If we just exit the presentation to bring up like a web page? Oh, it will? Oh, because it's up right now, but it's not displaying.
You have to make sure to exit the slides though. It's just how-
Make sure there's no other slides up, he said. You can just exit out of that one. Or minimize it, I guess. I don't know, doesn't matter. There we go.
Oh, okay.
And the mic is right here for online, just FYI. They're still having a hard
Awesome.
time hearing for some reason.
Okay.
Can we turn the mic sensitivity up a little bit?
I
Is
have
it up?
this high as well.
I've never been accused of not speaking loudly enough.
I know, they're having a hard time. hearing. I don't know why.
Okay, can you hear me now? I see some familiar faces in this room, so I'm hoping this won't be too painful. I know the advisors in COE kind of set through the video, and many of those advisors here who are also undergraduate advisors have seen some portion of this presentation previously, so bear with me. Most of you should have, well, actually, all of you should have received an email last week, kind of the big introduction to Banner 9, with link to the video. Has anybody watched the video? Awesome, great. We highly encourage everyone to watch the video. A lot of information, like when you watch the video, it explains everything, and it's much easier than you might think. But I'm just going to go through a couple of details about what's new in Banner 9 here. So, the big three. Oh, turn. Okay, I'm used to walking around. I'm
sorry. Did you wait for her to clip it? What's her address?
That's okay, I'll stay
Probably,
still.
yes, but-
Remind me, I'm used to walking around.
I apologize. I'm sure
So,
the 25 folks will be very grateful.
yeah,
I'm sorry.
sorry guys. So the big three. First is it runs in any browser, so we're no longer bound to Internet Explorer, which is kind of the big thing. It also uses Drexel Connect single sign-in, so you'll be able to use the same password you use for Drexel One and for so many other things to log into Banner. And it has a clean, more modern look. So people who've been here for a while know that Banner has basically not really changed in quite a while, but now we've kind of moved into the 21st century. So the old login to Banner, that's our old login with the username, password, database. Our new login is the same as our Drexel One login. So we get our DrexelNet, our very nice Drexel Connect login screen. And the other big difference, as soon as you log in, our landing page is completely different. So on our right, we have the Banner 8 landing page, and on our left, we have the Banner 9 landing page. So just like in Banner 8, when you went in, for people who've been doing this a while, the first thing you did was type in the form name that you wanted. Well, you can do the same thing here, right in the middle of our screen for our search bar. But there's a whole bunch of other options too. So just to kind of go through this screen a little bit. So right in the middle, yep, that's our search bar. We also have a little magnifying glass on the left. On the left-hand side, we have a navigation pane there. That search magnifying glass does the same thing. The top, we have our menu icon. The second one is little house is our home menu, and that just basically takes us back to our home screen, which is this landing page here. The menu icon will toggle back and forth because our navigation pane, as you'll see in a few slides from now, can expand and contract. We have an applications icon, the recent items, so that's similar to what you see in Banner 8 now, where you see the list of items that you've recently accessed in your current session. We have a question mark for our help, and the help in Banner 9 is actually really helpful. And context sensitive as well, so if you're on a particular page and you click help, it'll actually show you information related to the page that you're on. We have our little lock is our log out, and the button for the profile, which I don't think is active just yet. And then on the right-hand side, we have keyboard shortcuts, which will bring up a PDF of all the shortcuts because they are a little different between Banner 8 and Banner 9. So to start with, one of the really nice features of Banner 9 is that when you need to go to a form name, you can type in your form name, or if you don't know the name, you can actually start using real English, and you can type the word student, and it will show you all the items that have the word student in it, or registration. It also has an autofill feature, so once you type 3 characters, it will start showing you all those particular options. So if you're like, I know this begins with SGA, then you'll be able to see your options there. So that's really nice and helpful, particularly for new users. In our navigation pane, we have the little 9 dots, which is our applications icon, and it opens up our menu tree. And it includes Banner, which is your normal Banner menu, My Banner, so for those people who in Banner 8 have set up your preferences so you have your own special My Banner list, that will translate into Banner 9, so that list will still be there. As well as a link to Banner Self-Service and some other direct links. So for those of you who might also be faculty, you may have a link there for faculty grading, and for if you're a student, you might see a link for registration. So there will be additional links that are there, and some other things that we, as we go on, may be able to supply directly here. The Banner Tree menu. This is kind of a boring slide, but I brought this up because I feel like it helps people to understand that your Banner menu is the same. So this is the same exact Banner menu that you see in Banner 8, but now it's gray and pretty. And there's some new terminology. So when I was using, for those people who might not be able to see me, using air quotes when I said forms, because we don't call them forms anymore, they're now pages. Also, the sections, the blocks in your pages are now called sections. And then there's a couple of different icons on your screen that help you navigate in more normal English language. So instead of going from next block to previous block, when you put in an ID, you hit the button that says go. Instead of rollback, we say start over. Instead of query, we say filter. And instead of clicking the options menu to see related forms, there's a menu that says related. So this is in regular language. And then our file menu says tools in Banner 9 that allows you to see all the same options. So all the same options exist, just named a little differently. But there are a few differences and a few enhancements in our navigation. So first, when you open up a page, in Banner 8, when you open a page, it shows you kind of all the blank fields when you first go in. In Banner 9, it doesn't show you the data fields until after you fill out the information at the top. So you open up a form. In this case, it's SFA Regs, it's a registration form. You put the information in and you press go. Once you press go, the form is then populated. And if you take a look, it looks pretty much the same as in Banner 8. The forms are cleaner in terms of font and color, but the layout is pretty much the same. What we do have that's different is a couple of navigation items. For each section, there's a little, I wish I could walk around. There's a little drop-down button so you can collapse each of these sections. So sometimes when you're looking, there's a lot of information on the screen. So most of the time, if you're registering a student for classes, like that top block really isn't important for you. You can collapse that and just have on your screen the information that's relevant for you. In terms of keyboards, instead of control page down, it's alt page down. But we also have the option to move between sections. At the very bottom, we have kind of some navigation buttons. I'm going to move just for a second. I gotta move. I'll be back for those people. So this allows us to move in between sections, and each of these little items here allows us to collapse those sections. Sorry. Where was I? In each section, we are allowed to do some filtering. So in Banner 8, you would either select Query from your menu or press F7. And here in each section is a little button that says Filter, and it automatically shows up for you the first couple of fields that you can use to just click the drop down or type in whatever items you want to filter by. You also have the ability to select whichever items are in the page that you'd like to use for filtering. One of the nice things on this, which is that there's also an advanced filtering option. So if you want something that begins with, like I've had some of you call, it's like I need whatever classes have the word sport in them, or something to that effect, where you can use your wildcards here, or you can use additional operators like begins with or is not equal to, things like that. In the top right-hand corner, instead of the middle options menu that you see in Banner 8, in the top right-hand corner, we have a menu that says Related that gives us the list of related forms. And again, the list is exactly the same as what you would see in 8, just organized a little differently. One of the nice features that I like is that you can link through that Applications button directly into BSS. Within the same frame. So for me, that means I can toggle between the Banner pages and AVT pretty easily. So I can click on Banner pages and look at Sagastian and Spriden and SFA regs, and then click over and look at AVT and look at forms that have been added in or the Banner profile, and then go back again, all within the same browser. Additionally, obviously, there's all the other options that are available in Banner Self-Service are easily accessible directly from that link as well. So the big thing is the registration. I mean, most of the advisors are in Banner primarily for registration, and so the SZA regs form is going away, and instead you will use SFA regs, but there's some restrictions that have been added in a new era. So one, you can't use the all override option anymore. And that is because we want to make sure that when you're overriding, that you know exactly which items you're overriding, that you're choosing yes for each one, because we don't want anyone to override closed sections. And so if you choose all, then you could potentially override a closed section. You could potentially be setting it up to override a closed section without knowing. And if you do select yes to override a closed section, then we have an error message that pops up. And so the error message is a little intimidating, so we want to make sure everybody kind of knows it, sees it in advance to understand what that is. It does somewhere in there say specifically what the issue is. It says you do not have permission to override closed sections. So if you select yes for a closed section, you'll see the ugly error, or if you select all for any of the restrictions or any of the overrides, it's going to give you the same error because it doesn't know if you're trying to override a closed section or not. If you want to know more about Banner 9, again, I encourage everyone to watch the video. I think it makes everything really clear and really plain. Additionally, on the AIS page, there's a link to the test site, to our training site. So if you want to go and give it a test drive and fool around and see kind of how it feels to navigate, you'll be able to do that at your leisure. Additionally, starting in a couple of weeks, all of the regular Banner trainings that new employees employees go through. Those are gonna be switched over to Banner 9. So if you feel like you really need hands-on training, you can sign up for one of those beginner courses and just attend a training. Yes?
Sorry, if we have somebody new starting in 1 week, do you recommend that we wait until the new Banner 9 trainings are
Well,
to get her trained?
the training's every 2 weeks anyway, and
Yeah.
so if you have someone starting next week,
Yeah.
they're going to automatically get the Banner 9 training.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah,
Thank you.
as a matter of fact, I kind of walked by a training class today, and I saw that our trainers are actually training people on both right
Okay.
now.
Thanks.
So, yeah. Other questions? Yes?
When will we be using Banner 9?
So I personally am hoping that within the next couple of weeks that we can encourage everyone to go into Banner 9 and start using it for your everyday tasks. That's my hope. But the whole university by December 31st must move to Banner 9.
And how do we get into Banner 9, not the test? Are you gonna send us a link?
We will send a link. We're also working with the Drexel One portal team to try and put a link out there. Eventually, after December 31st, the Banner page that you go to now will redirect. Other questions?
I was just gonna ask something similar, or kind of the same thing. If we wanna start using it now, how would we get it now?
If you absolutely want to start using it now, send us an email. We can send you the link. But I'm going to ask anyone who says they want to use it now, have you watched the video? Make sure you watch the video, log into test, make sure you feel comfortable with it, and then absolutely. I mean,
It's not available yet, so.
oh, it is. Our department,
Yeah,
we've been
but
using it for months.
If I
The
go to
registrar's
Drexel
office.
One, I don't see it as a choice right now.
No. I mean, the link is out there, but the link is available, but it's not listed anywhere. Yeah. Like, I believe most of the registrar's office has been using it for a couple of months. Our office has been using it for a couple of months. I mean, the main thing that I like is that if anything goes wrong, the answer is click refresh, because it is a browser window, so when things don't, if something comes up, something doesn't look right, most often, the fix is click refresh, and, yeah. Other questions? You guys are easy. All right, great. So again, if you have any questions about this or about AVT, please send an email to ais_student@drexel.edu. Thank you. Get applause.
From us.
That's awesome. I learned a curtsy.
Yes, thanks. Okay, thanks, Chanel. I think just the next thing we just want to update everyone is on the D forms. I don't know if anyone remembers, but a few years ago, we went on a doctoral form digitization project, which, we learned many things, but it didn't work out. But now we are partnering with Catherine Maddox's team in IT to actually create doctoral forms that pull information from Banner, and it will be much easier. So Catherine is out of town, but she's going to come to one of our future meetings to give an overview about the D forms. Anything to add? I think that's the quick update.
Yeah.
Okay, and then announcements. Do you have any announcements?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, Sandra has announcements. I don't have any announcements, but Sandra does. Okay. Okay.
Alrighty, where were we? We're almost done. All right, so so the doctoral forms, if there's any feedback you have about the doctoral forms, again, as Natalie mentioned, we are working with Catherine Maddock and her team to address just the processes of the form at this point. So if there are major process questions or issues that you have with the doctoral forms, those discussions are happening now. Some of the associate deans in your colleges and schools are working on a committee to just go over the D forms, make sure everything makes sense, and just go over anything that could be eliminated from the process or that is missing from the process, so that when we do work to pilot a digital process, that the process is working the way everybody would like it to. So if you do have any feedback, feel free to reach out to us or to your associate deans who are working on these groups to provide feedback to IT while they develop the pilot. All right, so just some quick graduate college announcements. and graduate admission. So fall graduate open house is coming up. I don't know if any of you will be there. We'll be there. So that's Saturday, October 20th. We have our next Scholars Share program, which will feature 3 graduate students in the College of Nursing and Health Professions this month. So that's coming up on October 30th, and we're going to go over there to 3 Parkway for that program. The Fall Graduate Fair is coming up Tuesday, November 6th, as Drexel is hosting. And then Coffee Hour Seminar Series, we've had a couple workshops, particularly on financial literacy for graduate students. They've been really well received. So we're hoping to continue with our financial literacy workshops in the winter. And then we have an upcoming workshop, November 9th, featuring some topics from OED to assist graduate students. So just FYI that those things are coming. They'll be available on our website. As always, just a reminder, if you do have advising roles, advising changes, to let us know as well as AIS so that we can keep the banner system updated. So that's advisor changes. And then as of today, we are also now accepting nominations for our 2019 Graduate College Doctoral Fellows. So communications have gone out to your associate deans and college deans, inviting, as you begin your recruitment for doctoral students for next year, to consider the fellowship as an option for your more competitive students, to encourage them to come to Drexel. And our next advisors meeting has been scheduled for Wednesday, November 28th. That is the week after Thanksgiving. And we'll send out a meeting invite shortly. So if you have any agenda items, we have a couple prepared for next time. We're going to ask Angela Montgomery from Graduate Admissions to come and formally introduce herself, as well as some folks from Graduate Marketing to share some updates. But if you have any additional things that you'd like us to bring to the table, presenters, professional development topics, please let us know. We'll work hard to bring that to you monthly as we have. I think that's it for today. Any announcements from advisors in the room? Questions? Anything going on in your colleges? Yes?
I have a question for the Responsible Conduct of Research course. So I hear now there's going to be 3 sections, which is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Would it be possible to offer at least one of the sections in the Center City campus? Because it's very time consuming for our graduate students to have to travel here. Like my graduate students are helping me in NIH-funded clinical trials. And
Yeah.
3 hours that is lost from their day, shoveling over here, attending the course, shoveling back. Or is it
Right.
possible to attend online, like a Facebook, a live online class?
Yeah, I don't know that it's possible for online. I think it's a required in-person experience, but we can definitely talk to Natalie Chernetz, who's the course instructor, and provide that feedback of potentially offering one of the sections at the Center City campus, which was the question for those online. We'll talk to her, for sure. All right, thank you very much for your time and attention. And I'll be sending out the minutes with all our presentation materials from today as well.